Sims just days before Christmas and then reported him missing. The case was set to go to trial Monday, but Wardlaw entered a plea deal with prosecutors and was sentenced to 20 years in prison.
Nick Neville spoke with Sims' sister today and has more.
20 years ain't enough for me, but I guess that's the start.
A bittersweet week for the family of Terrell Sims, who saw his killer, Taylor Wardlaw, get 20 years in prison after waiting more than 2 years for justice.
What if I told you that someone could organize an entire search party for a person they had brutally murdered just 2 days earlier? What if they could stand in front of news cameras, tears streaming down their face, pleading for help to find their missing loved one, all while knowing exactly where the body was hidden? Have you ever trusted someone who turned out to be completely different than who they claimed to be? Maybe it was a friend who betrayed your secrets, or a partner who lived a double life. That gut-wrenching moment when you realized the person you thought you knew was nothing but a carefully crafted lie? Today's case takes that betrayal to an unthinkable level. In December 2021, Taylor Wardlaw didn't just lie to her community, she weaponized their compassion. While volunteers searched through dense woods and murky creeks, posting missing person flyers and sharing desperate pleas on social media, Taylor knew the horrifying truth. She had already ended the life of 26-year-old Terrell Sims, the father of her child, in a fit of jealous rage. But here's what makes this case absolutely chilling. Taylor didn't just kill Terrell and disappear. She performed grief. She organized search efforts. She brought her new boyfriend along to help find the man they had both helped dispose of. For weeks, she looked Terrell's heartbroken family members in the eye, accepting their comfort and support, all while hiding the most devastating secret imaginable. How could an entire community be fooled by such a calculated performance? What warning signs did everyone miss? Terrell Sims was a devoted father of 4 who worked tirelessly to provide for his children. His family described him as resilient, loving, and determined to build a better future despite life's challenges. But his relationship with Taylor was marked by control, surveillance, and an increasingly dangerous pattern of jealousy that would ultimately cost him everything. Before you hear this story, make sure to hit that like button if you're interested in true crime content that goes beyond entertainment. Because today's case contains crucial life lessons about recognizing the warning signs of dangerous relationships that could literally save lives. Terrell Sims wasn't perfect, but he was real. At 26, this Columbia, South Carolina father of 4 had weathered life storms with a determination that impressed everyone who knew him. His twin sister Marcella and older sister Rose often spoke about his unwavering commitment to his children. How he'd work multiple jobs, sacrifice his own needs, and constantly talk about the future he wanted to build for them. Growing up in a modest neighborhood where family meant everything, Terrell learned early that love required action, not just words. His parents instilled a work ethic that carried him through difficult times, and his siblings remained his closest confidants throughout his adult struggles. When challenges arose, and they did, Terrell faced them head-on rather than running away. Those who knew him best describe a man who lit up when talking about his kids. He carried their photos everywhere, called them multiple times a day when work kept him away, and dreamed constantly about giving them opportunities he never had. This wasn't just talk. Terrell actively worked toward those goals, even when circumstances made progress feel impossible. Taylor possessed the kind of sharp intelligence that could have taken her anywhere. Friends from her younger years remembered someone who was quick-witted, resourceful, and incredibly persuasive when she wanted something. But those same friends also noticed something else, an intensity that felt overwhelming when directed at romantic relationships. Even before Taylor's previous relationships had followed concerning patterns. She needed to know where her partners were at all times, who they talked to, what they were thinking. Friends who tried to point out these behaviors often found themselves cut off completely. Taylor didn't tolerate anyone questioning her methods of maintaining relationships. What made Taylor particularly dangerous was her ability to rationalize extreme behavior as love. She genuinely believed that tracking someone's every move showed how much she cared. In her mind, jealousy equaled passion, and control demonstrated commitment. This wasn't conscious manipulation. It was a deeply ingrained belief system that made her actions feel justified. When Terrell and Taylor met in 2018, the attraction was immediate and intense. Taylor's intelligence drew Terrell in, while her beauty and confidence made him feel chosen. For the first few months, their relationship seemed like the kind of passionate love story people write songs about. But by early 2019, Terrell's friends and family started noticing changes. He stopped showing up to gatherings without Taylor. His phone calls became shorter and more guarded. When asked about weekend plans, he'd hesitate before answering, as if checking an invisible script. Taylor had begun what experts call relationship surveillance. She monitored Terrell's social media activity, demanded to see his text messages, and showed up unexpectedly at places he was supposed to be. When confronted about this behavior, she'd flip the script, making Terrell feel guilty for questioning her or accusing him of hiding something. The birth of their child in 2020 brought temporary relief. Taylor seemed softer, more focused on a growing family. Terrell hoped fatherhood would help them build something stable together. But pregnancy and early motherhood actually amplified Taylor's controlling tendencies. Now, she had even more reasons to monitor Terrell's activities. She was protecting their family. By 2021, their relationship had become a cycle of explosive arguments followed by intense reconciliations. Terrell found himself walking on eggshells, constantly managing Taylor's emotions while trying to maintain relationships with his other children and extended family. The ankle monitor he was required to wear became another tool in Taylor's control arsenal. She could track his exact location at any time. Looking back, the warning signs were everywhere. Terrell's gradual isolation from friends and family. He needs to control every aspect of their social interactions. Her extreme reactions to perceived threats, whether real or imagined. The way she'd create dramatic scenes in public when she felt Terrell wasn't paying enough attention to her. Most telling was how Taylor reacted when she couldn't reach Terrell immediately. A delayed text response would trigger hours of accusations. An unexplained absence would result in threats and ultimatums. Drop a comment below if you've witnessed these kinds of red flags in relationships around you, because recognizing these patterns early can be the difference between intervention and tragedy. The house on that Monday evening seemed no different from countless others before it. Terrell was home with Taylor and their young child, going through the motions of what outsiders might have called a normal family evening. But normal had become a relative term in their household. Every interaction carried the weight of unspoken tensions and barely contained emotions. Terrell's ankle monitor had been a constant presence for months, a reminder of past troubles, but also a tool that Taylor had learned to use in her favor. She knew his exact location at all times and could track his movements down to the minute. It gave her a sense of control that she'd grown dependent on. But that night, something was different about the device. Whether by accident or intention, the monitor had been tampered with. The steady electronic signal that usually reassured Taylor was gone, replaced by an ominous silence that sent her into a state of heightened alert. What started as questions quickly escalated into accusations. Taylor's voice grew louder as she demanded explanations for the malfunctioning monitor. In her mind, the timing couldn't be coincidental. This had to be part of some elaborate plan Terrell was hatching to deceive her. "Where are you planning to go?" she demanded. "Who were you going to see?" Terrell tried explaining that he had nothing to do with the monitor's malfunction, but Taylor was beyond reason. Every answer he gave sounded like a lie to her ears. Every attempt to calm the situation was interpreted as manipulation. The jealousy and suspicion that had been building for years finally found their focus point. Taylor's accusations centered on infidelity, a recurring theme that had poisoned their relationship from the beginning. She was convinced Terrell was planning to use the monitor malfunction as cover for meeting another woman. No amount of denial or explanation could penetrate the wall of certainty she'd built around this belief. The argument moved from room to room as Taylor followed Terrell, her voice becoming more aggressive, her accusations more specific and hurtful. Their child's presence in the home added another layer of tension. Terrell was trying to keep the conflict quiet, while Taylor seemed beyond caring about who heard. There comes a point in every explosive situation where someone makes a choice. They can walk away, seek help, take time to cool down, or they can escalate beyond the point of return. Taylor Wardlaw reached that crossroads that night and chose violence. The details of what happened next are difficult to process. In a moment of rage, fueled by years of jealousy and control, Taylor retrieved a weapon and fired multiple shots at Terrell. The man who had been trying to explain, trying to calm her down, trying to preserve some semblance of peace in their home, was suddenly fighting for his life. But this wasn't a crime of passion that ended with immediate remorse or calls for help. This was the beginning of one of the most calculated cover-ups in recent memory. Even as Terrell lay dying, Taylor's mind was already working on her next move. The tears would come later, when cameras were rolling and search parties were forming. The devoted father of 4, the man who worked tirelessly for his children's future, was gone. But his killer was just getting started with her performance. 2 days after murdering Terrell, Taylor Wardlaw walked into the police station with tears in her eyes and desperation in her voice. She reported her boyfriend missing, explaining to officers that he'd simply vanished without a trace. Her performance was flawless, the concerned girlfriend who just wanted her man to come home safely. He wouldn't just leave like this, she told investigators, her voice breaking at exactly the right moments. Something terrible must have happened to him. Within hours, Taylor had transformed from killer to victim. She flooded social media with missing person posts, each one more heartbreaking than the last. Photos of Terrell smiling with their child. Pleas for anyone with information to come forward. Desperate messages begging for his safe return. Please, if you're out there, Terrell, just come home, she wrote on Facebook. Your babies need you. I need you. Thousands of people shared her posts. The community rallied around this heartbroken mother whose partner had mysteriously disappeared. Local news stations picked up the story. Taylor gave interviews, dabbing at her eyes as she spoke about how much she loved Terrell and how worried she was about his safety. While publicly playing the devastated girlfriend, Taylor was privately executing one of the most methodical cover-ups you'll ever hear about. She wasn't working alone. Her new boyfriend, Eddie Youngster Brown, had become her accomplice in both crime and deception. Together, they had already disposed of Terrell's body in a wooded area near Monticello Road Creek. The location was carefully chosen, remote enough to avoid detection, but accessible enough that they could get there and back without raising suspicion. They wrapped his body and left it where they hoped no one would ever look. The ankle monitor that had caused such conflict on the night of the murder was disposed of separately. Taylor knew this device could potentially track Terrell's last known location, making it crucial evidence that needed to disappear. She and Eddie made sure it would never be found with the body. Perhaps most disturbing was Taylor's decision to pawn Terrell's personal belongings, including his distinctive mouth grill, a piece of jewelry that held sentimental value and could be easily identified. This wasn't just about hiding evidence. It was about erasing Terrell's existence entirely while profiting from his death. The response from Columbia's community was immediate and overwhelming. Neighbors who barely knew the couple joined search parties. Friends organized volunteer efforts. Complete strangers shared missing person flyers across social media platforms. Churches held prayer vigils for Terrell's safe return. Local businesses displayed his photo in their windows. People took time off work to comb through woods and check abandoned buildings. The irony was gut-wrenching. Dozens of good-hearted people spending hours searching for someone who was already dead, led by the very person who had killed him. Terrell's family members joined these search efforts, grateful for Taylor's apparent dedication to finding their loved one. They had no idea they were being manipulated by the person responsible for their grief. Eddie Brown participated in these searches too, maintaining the charade alongside Taylor. They stood shoulder to shoulder with Terrell's sisters, accepting hugs and words of comfort from people whose hearts were breaking for a man they had murdered. If this level of calculated deception shocks you, hit that share button, because understanding how manipulators operate could protect someone you care about. What makes Taylor's behavior particularly chilling isn't just the murder. It's the complete absence of conscience that allowed her to maintain such an elaborate lie. While most people would crumble under the weight of guilt, Taylor seemed energized by the challenge of fooling everyone around her. Experts in criminal psychology point to cases like this as examples of how certain personality types can compartmentalize extreme violence while maintaining a public facade. Taylor didn't just lie about killing Terrell. She threw herself into the role of grieving girlfriend with an enthusiasm that fooled trained investigators. The scariest part? She almost got away with it. Marcella Sims knew her twin brother better than anyone else in the world. They'd shared a connection that went beyond normal sibling relationships, the kind of bond that made one feel when the other was in pain, even from miles away. So when Taylor's missing person reports started flooding social media, something in Marcella's gut screamed that this wasn't right. Terrell would never just disappear without telling his family. Marcella confided to her sister Rose, not without calling about his kids. This doesn't make sense. Rose felt the same unease. She'd watched Taylor's social media performances with growing suspicion, noting how composed Taylor seemed during interviews compared to how frantic a truly worried partner should be. The tears looked real, but the timing felt calculated. What bothered the sisters most was how Taylor seemed to be controlling the narrative around Terrell's disappearance. Family members were kept at arm's length from search planning. When they tried to organize their own efforts, Taylor would redirect them or suggest they weren't needed. For people who loved Terrell deeply, being sidelined felt wrong on every level. She's acting like she's the only one who cares about finding him, Rose told investigators later. But she's not letting anyone who actually knows Terrell help look for him. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Someone close enough to Taylor to earn her confidence, but conscience-driven enough to eventually speak up. This acquaintance approached investigators with information that changed everything. Taylor had confessed to killing Terrell during what she described as a heated argument. The confession hadn't been delivered with remorse or guilt. According to the witness, Taylor spoke about the murder matter-of-factly, as if discussing a problem she'd solved rather than a life she'd destroyed. She'd even provided details about Eddie Brown's role in disposing of the body and covering up evidence. Suddenly, investigators had a roadmap for where to look and what to look for. The case shifted from a missing person investigation to a homicide inquiry almost overnight. Armed with this new information, law enforcement began finding the evidence that confirmed their worst fears. Blood traces discovered in Taylor's rental car matched Terrell's DNA. Surveillance footage from the night of December 20th showed Taylor and Eddie moving suspiciously around the city during hours when she claimed to be sleeping. The ankle monitor was found discarded exactly where the witness said it would be, providing the final piece of the puzzle. Its location and condition proved it had been deliberately removed and thrown away, not lost accidentally. When investigators finally located Terrell's body near the creek off Monticello Road, the site confirmed the family's worst fears. The devoted father who'd been missing for 2 weeks had been dead since the night of December 20th. Every search party, every prayer vigil, and every desperate social media plea had been built on a lie. For Marcella and Rose, the discovery brought a mixture of grief and rage. Their instincts had been right, but being right about something so horrific provided no comfort whatsoever. Taylor Wardlaw's arrest came quickly once investigators had the confession and physical evidence needed to build their case. The woman who had fooled an entire community was finally facing the consequences of her actions. But the legal process that followed would test the patience and faith of everyone seeking justice for Terrell. Initially charged with murder, Taylor's case moved through the court system at a pace that frustrated Terrell's family. Legal maneuvers, plea negotiations, and procedural delays stretched on for over 2 years while his children grew up without their father and his family lived with unanswered questions. In March 2024, Taylor accepted a plea agreement that reduced her charge to voluntary manslaughter. The deal resulted in a 20-year prison sentence, with eligibility for parole beginning in 2038. Additional charges related to firearm use during the commission of a violent crime were dismissed as part of the agreement. Eddie Youngsta Brown faces his own legal reckoning. Charged as an accessory after the fact for his role in disposing of Terrell's body and tampering with evidence, his case remains pending. Surveillance footage and forensic evidence documented his participation in the cover-up, but the wheels of justice continue to turn slowly. For Terrell's sisters, the plea deal felt like a compromise they never wanted to make. Rose expressed her frustration publicly, saying the sentence didn't reflect the magnitude of their loss or the calculated nature of Taylor's deception. 20 years for taking my brother's life and then lying to our faces while we search for him? Rose said, "That's not justice. That's not enough." The children Terrell left behind face a different kind of struggle. His son Chauncey, now old enough to understand that daddy isn't coming home, often carries his father's photograph and asks when they'll see each other again. The other children are grappling with questions no child should have to face about violence, loss, and broken trust. Marcella and Rose have stepped up to help care for Terrell's children, but they acknowledge that no family support can truly replace what was taken from these kids. The revelation that Taylor had manipulated their compassion sent shockwaves through Columbia's community. Neighbors who had joined search parties felt violated by the deception. Volunteers who had donated time and resources to finding Terrell struggled with feelings of betrayal and confusion. But from this trauma has emerged a determination to prevent similar tragedies. Local law enforcement has partnered with domestic violence advocacy groups to create new support programs for at-risk relationships. Community education initiatives now focus on helping people recognize early warning signs of dangerous partnerships. Support groups specifically for families affected by domestic violence have formed, with Terrell's case serving as both a cautionary tale and a catalyst for change. The goal isn't just to honor his memory, but to ensure his death leads to protections that might save others. Terrell's story teaches us that recognizing dangerous relationship patterns early can mean the difference between intervention and tragedy. The warning signs were there long before that fatal December night, but they were normalized over time. Excessive jealousy isn't romantic, it's controlling. When someone needs to know your location every moment, monitors your phone calls, or becomes enraged over innocent interactions with others, that's not love. That's possession. Isolation from family and friends is another critical warning sign. Abusers systematically cut their victims off from support systems, making it harder to seek help or gain perspective on the relationship's toxicity. If someone you care about suddenly becomes distant from their usual social circle, pay attention. Surveillance behavior, tracking devices, checking phones, showing up unexpectedly, represents a fundamental lack of trust and respect. Healthy relationships are built on mutual freedom, not constant monitoring. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong about a relationship, whether it's your own or someone else's. Marcella and Rose's gut feelings about Taylor proved accurate, but they came too late to save their brother. Stay connected to people you love, even when their partners make it difficult. Maintaining those relationships can provide lifelines during crisis moments. Understand that manipulation can fool entire communities. Taylor's performance was so convincing that it fooled law enforcement, neighbors, and even trained professionals. Don't feel naive if you've been deceived by someone's public persona. If you or someone you know is experiencing relationship abuse, resources are available. The National Domestic Violence Hotline 1-800-799-7233 provides 24/7 confidential support. Local law enforcement and social services can also provide immediate assistance and safety planning. When helping someone in an abusive relationship, avoid ultimatums or judgment. Instead, listen without criticism, provide consistent support, and help them access professional resources when they're ready. Subscribe to this channel for more true crime content that goes beyond entertainment. Because understanding these patterns could protect you or someone you love from becoming the next victim. Terrell Sims died trying to build a better future for his children. His memory lives on through community efforts to prevent domestic violence and protect families facing similar dangers, while his children face an uncertain future without their devoted father. The lessons from his story continue working to save lives and strengthen communities.